Welcome, welcome, welcome to this Whole Life Action Hour. I'm Ocean Robbins, and I'm so glad you are here with me right now. You know, the data is in. With the right diet and lifestyle choices, you can slash your risk of many of the major chronic illnesses of our times, including heart disease, dementia, type 2 diabetes, certain forms of cancer. And you can do it all deliciously and happily and joyously with practices and protocols that add years to your life and that can also add life to your years. And we are here today to look at all of this. And I think it's even more important than ever in the age of COVID-19 because so many of the coronavirus-related deaths are linked to underlying chronic conditions. So we're here today with what many people might call the father of lifestyle medicine, one of the fundamental core pioneers of the movement to understand how to prevent and even reverse chronic illness, Dr. Dean Ornish. I will introduce him in just a moment, but first, I want to make very clear that nothing you hear today is medical advice. This is coaching. We're going to be sharing our best insights, but of course, you should always consult with a qualified healthcare professional and use your own best judgment regarding your specific medical needs and journey. That said, we're going to be learning a lot today, and we're here as a project of Whole Life Club. It's Food Revolution Network's ongoing membership community. This week, we're hosting action hours with Dr. Michael Clapper that we held on Wednesday, Dr. Dean Ornish today, and with Dr. Tara Brock on Sunday. Whole Life Club paid members get lifetime access to all of our library of action hours, including transcripts, and the chance to submit questions in advance of future ones. They also get weekly recipes, videos, a community of support, and a lot more. If you stay to the end, I'll tell you more about how you can join in with the special opportunity just for this week. But now we want to talk about how you can prevent and even reverse chronic illness. So let me introduce our brilliant guest, Dr. Dean Ornish. He's the founder of the nonprofit Preventive Medicine Research Institute, author of 6 best-selling books, including his latest one with Ann Ornish, Undo It: How Simple Lifestyle Changes Can Reverse Most Chronic Diseases. Dr. Ornish's 40 years of research have scientifically proven that his lifestyle program can reverse heart disease, prevent prostate cancer, and lengthen telomeres, reversing aging on a cellular level. The Ornish program was the first lifestyle-based program to be covered in the history of Medicare. Dr. Ornish has been recognized by Life magazine as one of the 50 most influential members of his generation, and by Forbes as one of the 7 most powerful teachers in the world. I'm also so honored to consider him a dear friend. Dean, welcome.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be back.
It's so good to have you with us. So I want to jump in here. As you've been seeing this COVID-19 pandemic unfolding, and I'm sure you've been seeing the numbers on how often death is linked to underlying chronic illness. What goes through your mind when you see that?
Well, just that, that the people who are most likely to die from COVID are the ones who have chronic diseases: high blood pressure, high cholesterol, heart disease, type 2 diabetes, and so on. And these are things that we can do something about. So much of the suggestions about how to avoid getting sick have been about avoiding the virus, which of course is important: wearing masks and, staying at home and washing your hands and social distancing and so on. Those are all important. But the other half of the equation are what we can do to enhance our immune function. And the same lifestyle changes that we found over time that could reverse and prevent the most common chronic diseases that we talked about earlier are the same ones that can boost your immune function. In the new book that my wife Ann and I wrote called Undo It, we present a new unified theory, which is that, I was trained, like all doctors, to believe that, different diagnoses, different treatments, But over the last 40 years, we found these same lifestyle changes could reverse the progression of a wide variety of chronic diseases. It wasn't like there was one set of diet and lifestyle recommendations for heart disease, a different one for type 2 diabetes or prostate cancer or gene expression or telomeres or whatever. It was the same for all of them. And, I was starting to think, well, why is that? And then it just hit me when it's kind of a blinding flash of the obvious that they're really not the same. They're really not different diseases. They're really the same disease in many ways, manifesting and masquerading in different forms.
Yeah.
And I say that because they all share the same underlying biological mechanisms, things like immune function, chronic inflammation, oxidative stress, changes in the microbiome, and telomeres, and gene expression, and angiogenesis, and apoptosis, and so on. And each one of these mechanisms in turn is directly influenced by what we eat, how we respond to stress, how much exercise we get, and how much love and support we have, or to reduce it to its essence, to eat well, move more, stress less, love more. That's it. And
Yeah.
the more diseases we study and the more mechanisms we look at, the more scientific evidence we have to support that. And so in that context, I think that these same lifestyle changes that can affect these other pandemics, and things like heart disease and diabetes, many more people are dying from than the coronavirus. But it's not something that goes person to person. I mean, it is a foodborne illness in many ways, but it's not by sneezing or by direct contact with other people. And so people tend not to think of it that way. But the good news is that, even if we need to try to avoid contact with the virus, but sometimes despite our best intentions, you do get a contact with someone. And there was an article that came out by Sheldon Cohen in the Journal of the American Medical Association in the early 90s. I don't know how I got this through the Human Studies Committee, and I don't even know how I got people to volunteer for it. You couldn't pay me enough to be in this study, but he actually dripped rhinovirus, the cold virus, the virus that causes the common cold, and coronavirus, a different, less virulent version, into volunteers' noses and otherwise healthy people. And 100% of them got infected. But not everybody who got infected developed the signs and symptoms of a cold. And they found that those that had 6 or more what they called social contacts, it could be a visit or just a phone call from a friend, compared to those who had 2 or fewer contacts over a 2-week period, were 4.2 times less likely to develop the signs and symptoms of a cold, even though they were all infected. And
Wow.
we're seeing this with the coronavirus as well, that not everybody, there are a lot more people that have been infected who are asymptomatic. Now that we're finally testing people for the antibody to it, they're finding that a whole lot more people have been exposed to it, either had a mild case of it or no symptoms at all, and yet now have the antibody to it. And so, and that's one of the reasons why people who have chronic diseases, because they're immunocompromised, are more likely to die from it because their immune systems are depressed. And so to the degree that you make these lifestyle changes, which are essentially a whole foods plant-based diet that's fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, soy products in their natural unrefined form, low in fat, low in sugar, moderate exercise, walking a half an hour a day or an hour 3 times a week, various meditation and yoga-based stress management techniques, which can quiet down our mind and body and experience more of an inner sense of peace and well-being. And love and support, visits from friends, social contacts, support groups, a Zoom call like what we're having now, even a phone call.
Yeah.
Um, those things can really reduce the risk of these chronic diseases. We found for the first time it can often even reverse those chronic diseases. And therefore, it can help us boost our immune function and reduce the likelihood of getting sick if we do happen to get exposed to the coronavirus.
Thank you for that, Dean. I kind of felt this chill go through me when you talked about the study in the 90s on love and connection and visits and the link to immune health and how people responded to the rhinovirus and another form of coronavirus in that study. Because I was thinking about the social distancing efforts that are in place right now and
Yes.
how important they are to public health. And obviously in different places, they're being played out in different ways. No, there's no cookie cutter formula for this from a governmental standpoint, but even in places where there are little or no regulations governmentally, many people are still scared and concerned. And it strikes me that a handshake, a hug, cuddles, it just human contact, visits may take a long time to be safe or to be felt as safe by human beings again. So it strikes me that we've got to find new ways of feeling the loving connection upon which our wellness and our quality of life depend in so many ways. You
Yes.
mentioned a few things about that, but how are you holding that in your work right now?
Well, I wrote a book 20 years ago called Love and Survival that reviewed what were then hundreds and now literally tens of thousands of studies showing that people who are lonely and depressed are 3 to 10 times more likely to get sick and die prematurely than those who have a sense of love and connection and community. I don't know anything in medicine that has that kind of far-reaching power. But again, it doesn't have to be an in-person thing. It's just knowing that somebody cares about you. It can be a phone call. It can be a text message. It can be a Zoom call. I think, the more real it is, like a Zoom call where you can see the person's expression and the nonverbal communication, the body language, I think that makes it even better. But in the study I quoted earlier, just a phone call, was enough to reduce the likelihood of getting sick by fourfold. So
Yeah.
these things really make a difference. And so anything that we can do, and it does concern me that, a lot of people are getting depressed. And, when you're depressed, your immune system is depressed. One study was done by Margaret Chesney at UCSF years ago and found that men and women who were HIV positive, meaning they were all 100% infected, who were depressed were more than twice as likely to develop AIDS and die from it than those who weren't. And so, a study that David Spiegel did at Stanford years ago, published in The Lancet, that women with metastatic breast cancer who had a support group once a week, just for an hour and a half, once a week for a year, 5 years later, those women lived twice as long as those who didn't have it. And a skeptic might say, oh, that can't possibly be. Talking about my feelings is going to help me live longer if I've got metastatic breast cancer, please. But they do. We are touchy-feely creatures. It's so easy to make fun of these things, that, oh, you live in California, it's an altered state, all that kind of stuff. But we are touchy-feely creatures. That's how we've survived as a species, is by loving and caring for each other. We have a primal need to be connected to other people. And so the people who are socially distancing, and especially those who live alone, really need to make it a point to reach out and have a virtual dinner or a Zoom call, or, go to the park or go for a walk with someone, wear masks and social distancing, but get out there, don't just stay isolated, because that ironically can be the very thing that may be reducing your immune function.
Yeah, thank you for that. I don't know if you've had this experience, but I've had many times in my life when I feel a sudden upwelling of love for somebody I haven't talked to in a long time. And then they send me a text, or the phone rings and it's them. And I don't know who started it, but the feeling is that love transmits independent of space. That there
Yes.
is an instantaneous connection between human beings. It travels way faster than the speed of sound, maybe the speed of light. I don't know how these things work, maybe faster than the speed of light, but I have this feeling of instantaneous and immediate connection.
Yes.
And I even believe that it's possible that love can transfer across the time continuum, that it's possible to love our inner child from a hurt time earlier in life, and it can actually bring healing to the present. But regardless of that point, I think that the fact that love transmits across space and is powerful in a time when we are sometimes physically separate. And I actually prefer the term physical distancing myself over social distancing, because I actually think we need social connection a lot right now. And
I like
because
that.
our typical means of social connection have been eroded in many cases, we have to find new ways of feeling connection between human beings.
I couldn't agree with you more. I like that term, physical versus social distancing, because it's true. And even in physics, there's a concept called mirror neurons, that these neurons can communicate with each other instantaneously. And I think our love is like that, because what the spiritual traditions teach us is that we are already interconnected. On one level, we're separate. You're you and I'm me, and we can enjoy having this conversation. But on another level, we're not. We're already connected with everyone and everything. With the mystics, would call that oneness. But even to give it a name is to limit what's essentially an infinite or limitless experience. That we are that. We are God, or that force, or whatever name you want to give to it, manifesting in all these different forms and playing out these dramas. My spiritual teacher for many decades, who really taught me a lot of the things that I'm now using in our program, Swami Satchidananda, a very ecumenical spiritual teacher, you'd like to use the example of a movie projector that, the old style movie projectors, where the film goes through,
Yeah.
that, the light behind the projector gets filtered through the film, and you see all these different names and forms and dramas and so on. But you can't really enjoy the movie if you forget that you're in a movie. It gets overwhelming. The best thing is to recognize, yeah, I see the names and forms, but I also see the light behind the projector. I see the oneness behind that. And really the form of the ancient swamis and rabbis and priests and monks and nuns didn't discover these techniques like meditation and so on to unclog their arteries or perform better in sports or do better in business or lower their blood pressure. I mean, it can do all those things, but they're actually very powerful tools for quieting down our mind and body to experience, first of all, the sense of inner peace and well-being. So much of our culture teaches us, the whole advertising industry is one of many examples, that we get our sense of happiness and peace and health and well-being from outside ourselves. And then it becomes, if only I must be lacking something because I'm not feeling so great. If only I had more whatever, more money, more power, more beauty, more accomplishment, more sex, whatever,
Yeah.
then I'd be happy. Then people would love me. Then I wouldn't feel so lonely and isolated. But once you set up that view of the world, however it turns out, you generally feel bad because until you get whatever that is, you feel anxious and like, stressed because the stakes go way up because it's not just winning or losing, it's being a winner or a loser. You feel like winners, people will love me, and if I'm a loser, nobody wants to be around me. So the stresses go way up. So until you get it, you're stressed. If someone else gets it, then it really feels bad, and it kind of reinforces that we live in a very hostile zero-sum game. The more you get, the less there is for me.
Yeah.
And if you don't get it, you feel bad. But even if you get it, it's very seductive in the moment because I got it, it's mine. But then it's almost never enough. It's always almost always invariably followed by either now what? It's never enough. I mean, think of all the times we thought, gosh, if I just made X amount of dollars, that would do it. And then you make that and suddenly it's like, well, I really need a little more. Or if it's not now what, it's so what, big deal. It doesn't really provide that lasting sense of meaning. And people say things like, the letdown that comes from accomplishing a goal is so great. I always make sure I've got a dozen projects going at the same time so I can immediately shift my attention to that.
Yeah.
What the Swami said, and what I think ultimately all spiritual traditions teach us, is that these techniques don't bring us a sense of peace. At the end of a meditation or yoga class, it didn't bring you a sense of peace, but what it did was, at least temporarily, to help us stop disturbing what's already there. Now that may sound like, parsing words and semantics and so on, but the implications are powerful because if those techniques bring you peace, then it's coming from outside you. And then everyone who has something that you think you need has power over you.
Mm.
But if the question shifts from not how can I get what I think I need to be peaceful and healthy, but rather, if I have that already, how can I stop disturbing what's already there?
Mm.
Not to blame myself, but to empower myself. Then I can do something about that. Because then the question becomes, okay, what am I doing to disturb that? And I can change that. And it often goes back to this feeling of I have to get something from outside myself. And so for me, the experience of illness can be a doorway, or any kind of suffering can be a doorway for transforming our lives because change is hard. But if you're hurting enough, then the idea of change becomes more appealing. It's kind of like, well, I don't know about all this weird vegetarian diet, and exercise and meditation. I mean, come on, talking about my feelings, but I got 1,000 things to do on my to-do list. Why would I want to sit there and just meditate and do nothing? But when you realize that, but then to me, part of the value of research is to show that if you're willing to make these changes, how powerfully the healing can occur in most cases. And you can rediscover inner sources of peace and joy and well-being. Then often people say things like, having a heart attack was the best thing that ever happened to me. And the first time I heard that, I said, what are you, nuts? And they'd say, no, that's what it took to get my attention to begin making these changes that have transformed my life in so many ways. So without any way trying to minimize the horrible impact of the coronavirus on so many lives and the economy being devastated, people losing their jobs, sometimes losing their homes, it's horrible. But within that, to the extent that it can get our attention, both as individuals and as a culture, on how can we address more the root causes of why people are getting sick and dying, both the chronic diseases that people die from on their own, which actually still outnumber deaths from the coronavirus, type 2 diabetes and heart disease, for example, or the fact that these chronic diseases make it more likely that if we do get the coronavirus, that we're more likely to get sick and die from it. There's a lot that we can do about it. Again, not to blame, but to empower.
Absolutely. I want to circle back when you were just talking about stress and mindfulness practices and meditation and the reframe that I hear you making between the notion that these practices give us a sense of inner peace, which is sort of treating them like another consumable, another thing that we get and
Yep.
do or buy to have an effect on us, which is how we tend to think often about life, to another frame, which is that they help us, as I heard you saying, to discover or to attune to the peace that is already innately within us.
Yes.
There is some witness, there is some place, for me, I experience it as beyond all preference. It literally is like a compass that knows what north is and points that direction no matter where you want to go. It just is. And there is some place within me that just is, that watches everything that happens, everything I feel, everything I experience, and is just a witness to that. And
Yes.
there's something about hopes and fears that are like a roller coaster. And one moment you've got hope, things are going to get better, fear, things are going to get worse. In times like these, when there's a lot of chaos in the world, a lot of us have a lot of fear. But hope and fear are both about future tensing, in a sense.
Yes.
And it seems to me that there is a kind of peace that's possible, that's available to us, that's actually innately present in us when we step off that roller coaster, in a sense, and are
Yeah.
willing to land right in this moment. Not that this moment doesn't include eyes that look forward and prepare for what's to come, but we're still here. We're in this moment, not in that future moment. Does that
Yeah,
make
and to
sense to
build on,
you?
and yeah, I agree with that. And to build on that, it's like all degrees of freedom are in the present moment. We don't have to react in the ways that we did before. And that witness, that voice, that knowing that you talked about has its own voice, and you can listen to it. It kind of gets drowned out by the chatter of everyday life. It's the voice that wakes me up at 3 in the morning and says, "Hey, Dean, listen up, pay attention. You're not doing something that's in your best interest." And I've learned that I can actually, and anyone can access that voice, that wisdom, much more directly than I had once realized. At the end of a meditation, when my mind is more quiet, I can ask that voice to identify itself to me. And I say, "Please identify yourself." And it'll say hello or some version of that. And then I'll say, always the same question: what am I not paying attention to that I need to pay attention to? And then listen. And it's surprising. It will tell you. Sometimes it speaks, in a voice, or other people will be an image, or some people will sit down at a typewriter and just start typing stuff that comes out. There's a lot of different ways of accessing it. And then that will lead to more questions. And so you can actually get into an inner dialogue with that. And part of what I've learned in that process is that we have a lot more freedom in the present moment, as you've indicated. Sometimes people like to joke, that's why it's called the present, because it's a gift, because all degrees of freedom are there. And like in my relationship with my wife, Anne, for example, we've learned that if we're totally committed to each other, then we know that we're going to ultimately, if we have a disagreement, we know we're ultimately going to get to a good place. So we can kind of go down those roads that are so familiar, like I'm right and you're wrong, and kind of build a whole case, with friends and family or therapists or whatever, to prove that I'm right and you're wrong. But then it's like, well, why would I want to do that? Um, because if you're wrong, then I'm not going to be happy. If you're not happy, I'm not going to be happy. And if I'm wrong, I'm not going to be happy. So why don't we reframe that to say, okay, we're in the present moment here. We've got all the possibilities, all degrees of freedom available to us. What lesson can we learn from this? And then let's let it go. I don't need to be right. I don't need you to be
Yeah.
wrong. And then we have, the older you get, the more precious every day becomes. And it's like, why would I want to waste that being angry or being self-righteous if I don't have to? And if
Yeah.
two people are really committed to that process, then it can be really transformative.
Thank you. So the four central pillars of the Ornish program are, I may mangle the exact language, but eat better, stress less, move more, and love more, essentially. And I'd like to go over those a little bit. We've talked about stressing less and loving more. I want to talk about the nutrition and exercise side a little bit here. So first, nutrition. Obviously, we're Food Revolution Network. We've got a lot of passionate food people in this community. Can you share, are there any recent breakthroughs or new insights or new affirmations of what we already knew that have come out recently, studies particularly, that you find interesting or encouraging?
Well, what I find interesting is how dynamic these underlying mechanisms are that we talked about. Chronic inflammation, changes in immune function, sympathetic nervous system overstimulation, changes in the microbiome and telomeres and gene expression and angiogenesis and so on. How quickly you can get better or worse depending on what you're eating, for example. These are not things, so often we're taught to view diet like, oh, change your diet to prevent something really bad from happening decades down the road. That's not a very motivating thing for most people.
Yeah.
Or, am I going to live longer? Is it just going to seem longer? All those kind of cliches. But what we're learning is how dynamic these mechanisms are and how quickly you can get better, feel better, and be better or worse, depending on what you do within hours, in some cases, minutes. There's a wonderful documentary that I'm sure you've seen called The Game Changers. And there's a great scene where they take these three elite athletes, these three guys, and guys have erections when they sleep. It's a normal function. And they gave them a single meat-based meal, grass-fed beef, organic chicken, etc. And that night they used a device that measured the frequency and hardness of erections when they slept. They did the same thing the next night with a single plant-based meal. and repeated it. And they found that all three guys had 300 to 500% more frequent erections and 10 to 15% harder erections after the single plant-based meal than the meat-based meal. Now, apparently the film crew went on a plant-based diet after shooting that scene, because it's not only important from the standpoint of sexual function, which is a big issue for a lot of people, but also it's indicative of what's going on in your body as a whole. Because like if you have erectile dysfunction, like so many guys do, you're at much higher risk of heart disease, because if your sexual organs aren't getting enough blood flow, chances are your heart and your brain aren't either, because it's the same process of atherosclerosis and changes in endothelial function and changes in platelet viscosity and other mechanisms that are directly influenced by even a single meal. And so then it changes the equation from fear of dying to joy of living, rather than I got to eat my broccoli so I don't get a heart attack 20 years down the road. That's not sustainable. To when I make these changes, what I get back so quickly, I feel so much better so quickly. My brain's getting more blood. I think more clearly. I have more energy. I can grow so many new brain neurons. My brain can get bigger, particularly the parts of your brain like the hippocampus that control memory, the first thing that goes in Alzheimer's disease. Your skin gets more blood flow. You look 10 or 20 years younger. I'm 96 right now. I think I look pretty good. Your heart gets more blood. You can reverse heart disease. Your sexual organs get more blood, and so on. And then it changes the equation from preventing something bad from happening. Fear is not a sustainable motivator. I think we're seeing that with the coronavirus. We're seeing that with politics, that fear-based politics, it kind of grabs you initially, but after a while it loses its power. That's part of the problem with climate change, is that it's not right immediate in most people's awareness. And so it's easier to just say, oh, let's not worry about that now.
Yeah.
But because these mechanisms are so dynamic, when you make diet and lifestyle changes, to the degree you make them, you feel so much better so quickly in most cases. And like, take heart disease, for example. Someone who, we learned this 43 years ago when I did my first study in 1977. I had 10 men and women, put them in a hotel for a month. And within a month, most of those people, within a few weeks, most of those people became pain-free, which we've now replicated in larger scale randomized trials. And so for someone who can't walk across the street without getting chest pain, or make love with their spouse, or play with their kids, or go back to work without getting angina or chest pain, within a few weeks, most of those people are pain-free. Then they say things like, I like eating junk food, but not that much, because what I gain is so much more than what I give up. And to the degree you make these changes, there's a corresponding improvement. If you're trying to reverse a life-threatening condition, which is what the Undo It book is about, it's hard to do that. That's why we were the first to prove that in so many cases, because people didn't go far enough. It takes a lot to reverse something. But if you're just trying to, it's like the pound of cure versus the ounce of prevention. But if you're just trying to stay healthy, lose a few pounds, get your cholesterol or blood pressure or blood sugar down, start by making moderate changes. And if that's enough to accomplish your goal, great. If not, do more. I wrote a book years ago called The Spectrum that was based on the finding in all of our studies that the more you change, the better you get at any age. And I had predicted incorrectly, as it turned out, that the younger patients who had milder disease would do better. But it wasn't how old they were, it wasn't how sick they were. It was simply a function of, at any age, the more you change, the better you feel. And we found statistically significant correlations between the degree of lifestyle change, not just diet, but all four aspects, and the length of your telomeres, the amount of blockage in your coronary arteries, the size of your prostate tumor, the amount of gene expression changes, and so on. And so that takes it out of the whole language of behavioral change, which has this often kind of finger wagging, moralistic, I cheated on my diet. Once you call foods good or bad, it's a small step to saying I'm a bad person because I eat bad food, and then game's over. Might as well, finish the cheeseburger or the pint of ice cream because you're a bad person, right? But it takes it out of that to say, look, what matters most if you don't have a chronic disease is your overall way of eating and living. So if you indulge yourself one day, it doesn't mean you failed or you're cheated or you're bad. Just eat healthier the next. If you don't have time to exercise one day, do a little more the next. You don't have time to meditate for an hour, do it for a minute. Whatever you do, there's a corresponding benefit. And then that takes it out of this whole moralistic, judgmental, and takes it more into like, oh, I've got choices. It's me. And to the degree I do this, I'm going to get a corresponding benefit. And if it's worth it, then I'll keep doing it, not to prevent something bad from happening, but because I feel so much better right now.
Yes, thank you. We got a lot of questions from our Whole Life Club members, so I'd love to get to as many as we can. I'll ask you to be kind of succinct, just because so you can know there's lots of them. We probably won't get to all of them, but we heard from Mike, who said, been on a whole food plant-based lifestyle strictly for 2 years, LDL cholesterol still high. I don't believe I'm unique in this predicament. Can we honestly and squarely address this issue? Do you see this? What do you think?
Well, first of all, it's important to measure your LDL, not just to calculate it. Most labs only calculate it, and it's it's a function of anyway. It's just make sure it's a direct measure. Make sure you have it done in the same lab each time because there's a lot of variability between labs. But we found in our studies that there was an average reduction in LDL cholesterol of 40% without cholesterol-lowering drugs, and in the general public, it's more like 20, 25, 30% in less controlled situations. And so we know that it works to do that. Now, as you know, you can go on a vegan diet that's not very healthy. Twinkies are vegan, and so you want to eat fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, soy products in the natural form as they come, also low in sugar and low in fat. Those things make a big difference. And so, a lot of people are saying it doesn't really matter how much fat you eat as long as it's plant-based. It doesn't matter how much sugar you eat as long as it's plant-based, but it does. And this is one of the ways that it manifests.
Yeah, I would also add that there are 4 pillars to the Ornish program. And when you talk about that 40% reduction, it's all 4. It's not just whole foods plant-based. If someone is sitting on the couch watching TV all day, that's going to have an effect on your cholesterol levels and your overall health.
And stress will raise your LDL. I mean, accountants around April 15th and Indianapolis 500 race car drivers have higher cholesterol levels after the race than before, and so on. So you're right.
Sure.
All of it plays a role.
And exercise.
And by the way, and it's synergistic. It's not just additive. It's 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 = 10, not just 4.
Yeah, absolutely. I would also add that a lot of people hear public health advice that they should exercise regularly and they go for a walk around the block, which is good if that's new for you. Every step counts, literally. At the same time, if you can walk around the block, then you should try jogging around the block. If you can jog around the block, you should jog around the block a few times. Keep leaning into it. Ultimately, ideally, you're getting a good hour of exercise every day. Ideally, don't make the perfect into the enemy of the good. Do what you can, start where you are. But if you have the capacity to expand, that's one of the nice things about exercise is the more you do it, the easier it gets because your muscles get stronger, your cardiovascular system gets more efficient, you become more capable, and you need to keep leaning into that if you want to maximize your potential and your overall health.
That's right. And as you say, it's not like you have to do one kind of exercise for heart disease and a different one for diabetes. It's just exercise, the same for diet and these other aspects as well. But so often people think, oh, if I can't run 5 miles 3 times a week, I'll just roll over in bed. So yes, if you can do more, but even a little goes a long way.
Yeah. Sylvan said, can heart valve disease regurgitation be reversed with lifestyle medicine?
Not to my knowledge. There, things like atrial fibrillation, the heart rhythm may be in part affected by that. But if it's a valve issue, it's more of a structural damage. Now, indirectly, lifestyle can play a role because if you have high blood pressure that's not controlled, that can accelerate the damage to your heart valves, for example. But if you can get your blood pressure under control, if the damage is already there, then it may be that you might need surgery. But it's hard to say without knowing more details.
Thank you. I don't know if some of these may be a little outside your strike zone, so feel free to pass on them if so, but Linda asked for help with chronic allergies to dust and dust mites. She said, I was on antihistamines and nasal steroids and took allergy shots and still had symptoms. Now I'm trying herbals. So far, I've tried a bunch of different things without relief. I've taken many environmental steps like mattress encasements, HEPA air purifiers, removal of most carpets, have no window treatments, wash bedding in very hot water. Any other suggestions?
Yeah, no, it's when we talk about how lifestyle affects immune function, it affects in both directions. It can boost your immune system in people who need that, but it can also dampen an overactive immune system, which is what is underlying autoimmune diseases, which includes not only allergies, but a whole host of other autoimmune conditions ranging from lupus to Sjogren's to Hashimoto's to on and on. And so it can help you kind of get into that, 3 bears, not too hot, not too cold, but just right. I had terrible allergies when I was a kid. I'm a perfect example. My mom took me to the allergist. I had allergy shots, but I was also eating your Texas diet of, cheeseburgers and chalupas and red meat 3 times a day and lots of sugar and so on. And later when I turned 19 and went on a plant-based diet, those allergies all went away. I almost never have any allergy symptoms. And so that's not the same as the randomized trials that we've conducted, but simply on a personal level and in other people that I've seen, those lifestyle changes can make a big difference.
Great, thank you. Angela said, any suggestions for help with chemo-induced foot neuropathy?
I wouldn't know the answer to that, except to say that when you make these lifestyle changes going into chemotherapy, it can help the chemotherapy work better and reduce the side effects. But about something specific, whether you have a neuropathy already, I don't really feel qualified to answer that.
Okay, thank you. Larissa said, I live in Iraq where we don't have the luxury of buying organic produce. Is there any research you know of that compared the benefits of eating conventional fruits and veggies over organic ones for disease prevention? And is it better to eat the whole apple with the pectin in the skin after washing well or to peel it? Same goes for potatoes and
Right.
other produce that can be peeled.
Yeah, no, it's better to eat organic if you can, first of all. It doesn't have as many of the insecticide residues that can be endocrine disruptors, and the food tastes a lot better. A lot of people think, oh, broccoli, I would never eat that, you know. But it actually, when you give someone some slightly steamed organic broccoli, you know, with little spices on it, people go, wow, that's delicious. I had no idea. And so from a taste standpoint, as well as a health standpoint, if you can afford it and if you have access to it, organic is better. But it's better to eat frozen vegetables than, you know, grass-fed beef, for example. And those things can make a big difference. She was asking something else. What was the other part of that question?
So should you peel
Oh, peeling,
those
that's
things
right.
or not?
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think if you can wash them good, I think is really wash them well is important, especially if they're not organic, to get off the insecticides if you can. But the peel and the pectin and all those things have benefits. And so if you can eat it as close as it comes in nature, I think that's preferable.
Thank you. We've done some research on washing and how to wash produce to get pesticide residues off. And the most effective way is actually if you create a solution of about a tablespoon of baking soda per gallon of water and soak for 15 minutes. That gets off roughly 80% of pesticide residues typically, which is far more effective than just running it under the tap, for example. Long one here from Debbie. She said, I took a course on insulin resistance. We were taught you can't just go by fasting blood sugar readings and A1C levels. We were taught to test each food eaten by taking our blood sugar every 15 or 20 minutes or so for about an hour to an hour and a half after eating till we learn when our blood sugar peaks and how the food affects us. She's saying that her fasting blood sugar was nearly always 79 to 83, even before starting a whole food plant-based low-fat diet 5 months ago. But she is concerned. She said that some of the whole food plant-based doctors make it sound like you can stuff your face with all the beans, rice, fruit, etc. you want and reverse your heart disease and diabetes and pre-diabetes. She said, I don't know about all the other people, but I can't eat that way. If I eat almost any legumes, potatoes, or rice, my postprandial blood sugar goes into the stratosphere. But the message I get is that it doesn't matter as long as your fasting numbers and A1C are okay. I emailed Dr. Esselstyn to ask this, and he was kind enough to call and speak with me personally. He said he looks at what he looks at is the fasting and the A1C. As a health coach who wants to help pre-diabetics and diabetics, I just have to settle this issue in my own mind before suggesting people try a whole food plant-based diet. If you listen to Dr. McDougall or Dr. Barnard, they talk like they get excellent results with their patients and never even mention postprandial blood sugar. So she's really asking for your take on this.
Well, I think it's it's an important issue because elevated blood sugars can lead to chronic inflammation and to many of the other issues that we've talked about. But I don't know that it's, I mean, if you look at what's called the glycemic index, each food has a glycemic index, which is a measure of how quickly it's absorbed. For example, pardon me, if you go from whole wheat flour to white flour, or from brown rice to white rice, you're removing the fiber in the bran, and the fiber in the bran ordinarily slow the rate of absorption from your gut into your blood. And so instead of getting, whereas if you eat white rice or white flour or sugar, it goes straight, you're mainlining sugar, so your blood sugar spikes. Your pancreas senses that your blood sugar is too high, so it causes insulin to be released. The insulin surges over time when they hit the insulin receptor. It's almost like the boy who cried wolf is my analogy. It's like the insulin receptor goes, oh, not more insulin. And so, and so it sorts of down regulates and becomes more insulin resistant. And over time, that can lead to prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. So these insulin surges really are important, which don't show up in the fasting blood sugar or even in the A1C, which is more of an average blood sugar over the last 2 or 3 months. So you're right to look at that. But on the other hand, there's a concept called glycemic load, which I think is better than glycemic index, because it takes into account all of the meal that you're eating, not just these single elements. Because if you're eating some white rice with some other high fiber foods, it's the meal as a whole that's going to get absorbed more slowly, because the fiber in these other foods will slow the rate of absorption of that one food that might have a high glycemic index. And so in general, most beans and grains, whole grains at least, have a lower glycemic index. If you can avoid the refined foods and the sugar and the high fructose corn syrup and the concentrated sweeteners, that's a good thing. Now, if you really want to be, a kind of a quantified self person and really measure the effect of each food on you and your blood sugar and how high it spikes, go for it. That's a good thing to do. That's more than most people are going to be willing to do. And so that's why I think if you just can read up on, say, okay, what are the foods that have a low glycemic index and low glycemic load, that might serve you better. I mean, bananas, for example, might have a high glycemic index, but they actually have a low glycemic load. Carrots are the same way, because as they are, even though they don't have much fiber in them, they still, as part of an overall meal, can be very healthy.
Help us understand this for a second, because I understand glycemic load to be the totality of what you're consuming.
Yes.
And index is individual ingredients, essentially, as part of the
Correct.
meal. But you just said that bananas have a high glycemic index, but a low glycemic load. So are you differentiating there in some way?
Yes, to the extent that you're eating bananas, not just in isolation, but with other foods.
Oh, I see. Okay. Got it. So in other words, they combine with other foods in a way that has a different effect.
That's right.
Than solo. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. Thank you. Lisa said, I'm 75. I've been predominantly hypothyroid, currently taking some medications for that, but still having poor energy and activity levels. She's asking if a whole food plant-based diet can affect these levels and provide a greater feeling of energy.
I don't know. It depends on why you're hypothyroid. So hypothyroid, if it's, excuse me, I was doing a long interview earlier today, so I'm a little hoarse. If you're hypothyroid because you had Hashimoto's thyroiditis, where your antibodies were attacking your own thyroid, then that's different. So the bottom line is I can't really answer that question without knowing more, but
yeah.
It's easy enough to see. The nice thing is it's easier to measure your TSH level, which is one of the most sensitive indicators of hypothyroid, because your brain produces thyroid stimulating hormone, or TSH, to stimulate the thyroid to produce more thyroid hormone. And so if it goes up, it means your thyroid is more resistant to the stimulation, which is what hypothyroidism is. And so you might try going on a whole foods plant-based diet, get your TSH checked right beforehand, get it checked a month later, and see if it's gone down or not. Make sure you do it in the same lab, because there's a lot of variability between labs, and then you'll know for yourself in what's called an N of 1 study whether or not it's making a difference for you or not.
Yep, N of 1, but the most important one for you.
Yes.
We heard from Francine, who said, I started 3 times eating whole food plant-based, but had to incorporate meat to get my iron, ferritin, and hemoglobin back in range now. Apparently, I do not absorb non-heme iron. Is there a way to achieve this with some food combinations or other tricks?
Well, most people get too much iron. And was this a woman or a man that was asking?
It's a woman, I think.
Okay, well, if you're a premenopausal woman, you're going to be bleeding every month. And that's how you lose iron, is in the heme iron that's part of the hemoglobin. It's one reason why postmenopausal women and most men are better not taking vitamins that have iron in them. I take an iron-free vitamin because iron is an oxidant, and it can oxidize, for example, LDL cholesterol to a form that's more likely to end up in your arteries. And so for most people, they're actually getting too much iron. But if you're a premenopausal woman and your iron is low, the easiest thing to do is just to take an iron supplement. Take ferrous gluconate or ferrous sulfate. Most people will absorb that. And then you don't have to eat red meat to get iron.
Thank you. Yeah, we also find that vitamin C helps, doesn't it, with absorption?
Yes, well, vitamin C does help with iron absorption, particularly things like the oxalic acid that's in spinach, which can sometimes interfere with iron absorption, can be counteracted by taking vitamin C.
Yeah, thank you. Larissa said, can you explain why some doctors who have studied nutrition still claim that meat is essential for good health? For example, Dr. Terry Wall states that she believes growing up as a vegetarian likely contributed to her developing multiple sclerosis. But as long as we supplement with vitamin B12, is there any other benefit we're missing out on to avoid increasing our risk of autoimmune disease? To quote her, she says, I was once a vegetarian because of my conscience, but now as a doctor, I can no longer in good conscience recommend it. Larissa is wondering.
Well, I can't speak to her particular case, but there are studies now, particularly with multiple sclerosis, showing that a whole foods plant-based diet, particularly when combined with these other lifestyle changes, can be of benefit to people with MS. Um, I don't know, I can't really, again, speak to her, but there's a whole literature, which I summarized in the Undo It book, showing that red meat is one of the most unhealthy things that you can eat, and not only for you, but for the planet. You and your dad have written a lot about more global warming is caused by livestock consumption than all forms of transportation combined. Much of the Amazon is being deforested for that. It takes 14 times as much resources to make a pound of meat-based protein as plant-based protein. There's enough food to feed everyone. It's just a misappropriation of resources. If more people went on a plant-based diet, it frees up a lot of food to feed the hungry. Not to mention the incredible suffering from all the sentient beings in factory farms who, live a whole life, in a little pen and suffer needlessly. I mean, I was reading an article this morning about they can't get the pig farm people to come to work, so they're now just going to club them and shoot them.
Yeah.
It's a lot of suffering. If you're in a place that only has meat, then and you need it to survive, then you should eat it. My my teacher used to say, if you're in a plane crash in the Himalayas and there's no food anywhere and you're the only one who's alive, you should eat your your fellow passengers. You do what you have to do to survive. But with all these plentiful fruits and vegetables, especially in this country, and the fact that you can eat less expensively by doing that, and it frees up all these resources. But more than that, there's so much evidence that it's not just the fat versus the cholesterol, that the animal protein in red meat itself is pro-inflammatory. One study showed, for example, that people who eat a diet high in red meat have a 75% higher risk of premature death from all causes, and a 400 to 500% increased risk of of getting type 2 diabetes or heart disease or breast or prostate or colon cancer. And so we know that these studies are there. Now, why do some doctors recommend meat? Well, I'm on the nutrition committee of the American College of Cardiology, and we published a paper a year or two ago in one of the leading cardiology journals. And we were saying, how much nutrition training does the average doctor get? And it turns out it's 4 hours a year, and even that is mostly, vitamin C and scurvy, and so on. And then the question was, how much training does the average cardiologist get in 4 years of cardiology fellowship? And it turns out to be zero, So it's not surprising that a lot of doctors don't know much about nutrition because we're not trained in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, there are some people who do focus on nutrition and come to different conclusions for different reasons. And we can't really know with certainty what the different motivations are for different people that lead them to those conclusions. Obviously, somebody who grew up vegetarian and then developed MS could have a reason to think, oh my gosh, maybe that wasn't right. Maybe that caused it. On the other hand, we just held a Food Revolution Summit recently, and we had a speaker in there who had actually reversed MS. She went from being in a wheelchair to running a marathon after adopting a whole foods plant-based diet.
But see, I think that's part of the reason why I spend so much time doing science. The whole point of doing randomized trials is to sort out what's true and what isn't. And there's nowhere, as you know, more nutritional misinformation in the area of diet, because everyone has to eat. It's just a question of what. And so people get very interested in that. But people can make up all kinds of stuff. Grass-fed beef is good for you. There's not a shred of evidence to show that grass-fed beef is any better for you than regular beef. I mean, it's better for the cow, and from a humane standpoint, it's clearly better. But from a health standpoint, it doesn't really matter that much. And so again, we need to get past this fat versus carbs debate, and the animal protein itself seems to play at least as an important role. And that, is something we can do something about.
Yeah, thank you. And we heard from Adelisa, who said, looking for an alternative to controlling chronic heartburn. My doctor wants me to take medications, but I don't want to do that. Are enzymes the better way to go?
Well, most people find that when you go on a plant-based diet, one of the things about red meat is that it's a very strong stimulant of the parietal cells to produce hydrochloric acid in your body. And so I can't tell you how many people report that their heartburn goes away when they go on a plant-based diet, especially if it's fully plant-based. And so I would encourage them to try that first. if you have to take antacids, it's one thing, but the proton pump inhibitors, which are often given, and the drugs that are designed to to block the secretion of acid, like Tagamet and Zantac and things like that, they're finding are actually not so healthy for us. And so if you can do it by treating the cause, which is often what we eat, and also a lot of people secrete a lot of acid when they're under stress. And so the stress management techniques plus a plant-based diet, that's especially one that's low in fat, can often substantially reduce your body's secretion of acid and obviate the need for other treatments for that.
Thank you. Laura said, I know that a whole food plant-based diet is the healthiest way of eating. I was wondering if it's also salt, oil, sugar free, then how much greater are the benefits? Incidentally, I do both. I have an immune disease that's fairly uncommon. I've been living mostly symptom-free for several years. I'm 79 and still upright and above ground. Thank you for considering my question.
Good. Yeah, well, I mean, some oils are good for you. I mean, I've been recommending the omega-3 fatty acids for decades. My mentor at Harvard, Alexander Leaf, who was the chief of medicine, was one of the first people to document their power. And so you can get algae-based omega-3s, which is what I take, because that's where the fish get them from. They get them from eating the algae. Or you can take the fish oil if you're not vegan. But that's something that's helpful. But the salt is mainly an issue if you have high blood pressure or kidney failure or a kidney disease or heart failure. But a little salt otherwise doesn't seem to be such an important issue. But I think the healthiest diet for most people will be a whole foods plant-based diet that's low in fat, low in sugar, and low in refined carbs.
Thank you. Lola said, this might be the last one we have time for right now. A year ago, I started eating an organic whole food diet and then an organic whole food plant-based diet a couple months ago. I have lost 60 pounds during the last year. Wow. A month ago, I stopped the last of my prescription medicines. These included medicines for high blood pressure, high cholesterol, dry mouth, Crohn's disease, and mini strokes. I am still experiencing some dry mouth. Does the research show anything about the problem of a dry mouth in relation to diet and medication?
Not sure about the dry mouth, and make sure they're not smoking marijuana or something like that that could also cause that. But it sounds like she's a perfect example of what we see over and over again, that when you go on this kind of diet, and especially when you include other lifestyle changes, again, don't make any changes in medications without doing it under your doctor's supervision. That could even be life-threatening. But the need for those medications can often be reduced, right? In her case, you can get off them altogether. And so as opposed to when most people go to the doctor and they say, well, we have to put you on medications to lower your cholesterol, your blood pressure, your blood sugar. And they say, doctor, how long do I have to take these? The doctor usually says, what? Forever, right? And I've been showing this cartoon that I had drawn 45 years ago. A doctor is busily mopping up the floor around a sink that's overflowing. It's like, how long do I have to mop up the floor? Like forever. Well, why don't we turn off the faucet? Why don't we treat the cause? And more often than not, the cause are these lifestyle choices that we make. And what continually inspires me is that our bodies often have a remarkable capacity to begin healing, and much more quickly than we had once realized, to the degree that we make these lifestyle changes, how quickly we can often get better in ways that more than offset whatever we might have, the pleasure we might have gone by eating certain foods. What you gain is so much more than what you give up, and how quickly you can experience that.
Thank you so much, Dean. We talked about telomeres a little bit earlier. I think it's a fascinating topic, and a lot of people don't even know what telomeres are. Can you explain a little bit, just as we're nearing the end of our time here, about what telomeres are and what the research, what it means that we can lengthen our telomeres?
Telomeres were discovered by Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn, who got the Nobel Prize for that. And they're the ends of our chromosomes that regulate cellular aging. They're sometimes likened to the plastic tips on the ends of a shoelace to keep your shoelace from unraveling. They tend to keep your DNA from unraveling. And as your DNA replicates over time, oh, sorry. I was excited. As your DNA replicates over time, the telomeres tend to get shorter. And as your telomeres get shorter, your life tends to get shorter. And the risk of premature death from a wide variety of conditions, from heart disease to diabetes to Alzheimer's, goes up proportionate to that. She found that women who were under chronic emotional stress had shorter telomeres. And so we had lunch one day and I said, if bad things make your telomeres shorter, if smoking makes your telomeres shorter, if chronic stress makes them shorter, an unhealthy diet makes them shorter, lack of exercise makes them shorter. I said, most things in biology go both ways. What if we put people on our intensive healthy lifestyle program? Maybe they'll get longer. And then no one had ever shown that before. In fact, everything we've done pretty much for the last 43 years, no one has ever shown. That's what makes research so interesting, is that we can redefine what's possible for people and give them new hope and new choices. So we did a study and we found after just 3 months, the telomerase, the enzyme that your body produces that repairs and lengthens telomeres, went up by 30%, which we published in the Lancet Oncology. And when the Lancet editors sent this around, as you said when we started, they called it reversing aging at a cellular level. We then found over a 5-year period, we could actually lengthen telomeres by about 10% for the first time, whereas they got shorter in the control group. Now, I mentioned briefly in closing that we're also in the midst of doing the first randomized trial now to see if we can reverse the progression of early stage Alzheimer's disease. And we're in the middle of that. We can't really talk about it yet, except to say that if anyone's watching this and lives in the San Francisco Bay Area, go to our website, ornish.com, which will link to a description of the study. It's all offered for free to people who are eligible. Let us know, and we'd love to work with you. But let me just say in closing how, to me, awareness is always the first step in healing. I hope this has been helpful in raising awareness. I'm deeply grateful to you, Ocean, for your leadership and providing this forum for me and for others to help raise awareness. And again, having seen what a powerful difference these lifestyle changes can make, I would encourage you to give it a try.
Absolutely. Thank you. And Dean, you mentioned that you had that cartoon drawn 45 years ago. So I would have been like 1 year old at that time. You've been doing this for a long time. And I want to appreciate something here. We tend to overestimate what we can do in an hour, but we sometimes underestimate what we can accomplish in a lifetime. And in these last 4.5 decades, you have shifted public consciousness about diet and lifestyle in profound ways. You've given hope to millions of people, some of whom have never read your books, they've never been to the Ornish program, but you have literally shifted the entire way that our culture thinks about lifestyle as a means of not only preventing illness, but actually of reversing it, of actually not just stopping the shortening of those telomeres, but actually lengthening them. And for everybody who is feeling afraid, oh, I've been eating bad too long, I've been living bad too long, is it too late for me? I just really want to anchor in the heartening hope that Dean is bringing us right here, that you can actually turn the ship the other direction. You can turn it around. You can have phenomenal regeneration. Your body is so resourceful. And the book Undo It, which is a fantastic book, is all about that. It's all about how you can literally not just prevent, but also in many cases reverse chronic illness. Fascinating. And I love how you anchor it, not just in avoiding illness, but in moving towards life and moving towards love and moving towards more peace and more joy. Because after all, I believe that health is a means to a greater end. I don't think it's an end in itself. I think it enables us to live and to live well and to serve, which is something that the world needs right now. So again, Dean, thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend. Take care.
All right, thank you. And for those of you who want to stay on with me, please do stay on. We're going to let Dean go now with so much gratitude. We're going to make a transition now, and I want to tell you more about Whole Life Club and how you can take action to get the results that you want in your life. So again, we thank Dr. Dean Ornish for joining us. It's been a joy to have this time with you.
Thank you. All the best.
All right.
Bye.
Bless you. And if you're already a member, you don't need to keep watching right now because you already know how amazing Whole Life Club is. But if you're not already a member, and if you're interested in maybe taking some steps to implement all that you're learning here today in your life, to ground it, to land the plane, to make this happen day in and day out, not just for a moment of inspiration, but for a life of wellness, then keep watching and find out how you could join in for a very special opportunity that's only available this week. You know, my dad and I and our whole team at Food Revolution Network, we started a Whole Life Club because we saw so many people who were on information overload. They knew the facts, they knew they should be eating better, but they didn't know how to make it happen. And the truth is that if all that was needed was we just had to know that we need to eat more vegetables and less processed junk, we would not have an obesity epidemic right now. We wouldn't have a diabetes epidemic right now. But for many people, there's a world of difference between what they know they should do and what they actually do. And what's needed now isn't more data, it isn't more information. A lot of us are on information overload. What's needed now is clarity. You need to know what you can trust. You need consistent, clear guidance that can help you apply what is truly in your best interests over the long haul and get those results that you want. So we created Whole Life Club for that purpose, to be that steady, solid, clarifying wind at your back to help you keep making progress. It's not a one and done thing. It's a sustained community of support and resources and steady, consistent wisdom to help empowering your whole life journey. Every month in Whole Life Club, we've got a theme, and those themes are kind of like a month-long course. And some are going to be of greater interest than others, but I promise you, some of them could be absolutely game-changing for you. Past themes have been on things like brain health or heart health or anti-cancer living, or how you can have balanced blood sugar, or how you can boost your energy levels, or how you can bring down excessive inflammation in your body. And every month we've got a special action hour with a guest expert who talks about that month's theme. And members can submit questions that we ask in those action hours, and also have access not only to our whole library of action hours, but also as well to the transcripts and the follow-up action checklists from each of them. Members also get specific resources like recipes. We've got a library of more than 400 recipes. You can search by regional cuisine, by specific foods you want to emphasize. You got a lot of broccoli, look for some recipes with broccoli. You can look for omitting things, so you can search to avoid allergens that you don't want in your diet. If you're allergic to almonds, you can find only recipes that don't have almonds. Amazing resources there. And plus you get 5 new recipes every week that tie to that month's theme to help you emphasize the particular ingredients and the particular food styles that we're focusing on that month, so you can keep making progress for your brain, for your cells, for your anti-inflammatory lifestyle, for whatever it is that we're focusing on and that you want to get results on. And you get it all instantly, including our entire library of content when you join. Recently, we conducted a survey. We asked our Whole Life Club members, how is it impacting their life and what kind of results were they seeing? And we saw that overwhelmingly, so many members were losing weight. They were gaining more energy. They were feeling more continuity and ability to sustain their healthy choices that they wanted in their life. They were getting off medications that they no longer needed. They were feeling less lonely and more connected to peers in the healthy eating journey. So if you can relate to wanting any of those kinds of things in your life, then perhaps this is the time right now to join in, because we're doing a series of action hours this week. We had the one a couple days ago with Dr. Clapper. We have another one in a couple days with Dr. Tara Brock. You do not want to miss it. She is absolutely brilliant. And there's a whole new raft of people who are joining in this week. Plus, we had a Food Revolution Summit last month, and the response to that was incredible. So because there's all this momentum and so many new people getting exposed, we're putting Whole Life Club on huge sale with basically a 40% discount off the regular annual price. So when you join in today or this week only, you can take advantage of that, all with a 60-day total money-back guarantee. So if you're thinking about it, then this is your time. Now, recently I got to chat with one of our Whole Life Club members. Her name's Jean from New Jersey, and she said she wanted to share how Whole Life Club had impacted her life. So we went ahead and I just chatted with her on Zoom for a few minutes, and I want to share with you what she said, because I think it opens up some of the inspiration of what's possible when we apply the principles of a whole foods, plant-based diet and all the other principles that we're talking about today, exercise and stress reduction and positive social connections. When we apply all that in our lives, it can open up worlds of possibility. So here we have Jean's story in her own words.
My name is Jean, and I'm from New Jersey.
And when you joined Whole Life Club, and prior to that, what were some of the health and or food challenges you were struggling with, and how did that impact your life?
I think my health journey, and it's been a journey, started when I went to the doctor and got a very bad cholesterol report. This was one time, and I was shocked to see that the doctor immediately took out a pad and wanted to write me a prescription for the rest of my life to be on statins. Well, that didn't sit well with me, so I left and tried to remediate my health myself. And I did very well. Within 5 months, I went back for another checkup, and my report was perfect. So you see, I could have gone down a very slippery slope, which would not have been at all good for my health. And that came at a time, there was sort of a convergence of several factors. I came across forks over knives, which I think was transformational. I was so surprised at what I learned there. And then I came across the Food Revolution Summit and really just soak that all up. That led to a host of docuseries on health. After the Food Revolution Summit, I determined that my husband and I would be eating plant-based meals every other day. And then when I had all that head knowledge, it was, life gets in the way. It was difficult to implement on a steady course. And plus, I'm the only one of my friends and acquaintances who had that knowledge. And therefore, I really didn't have support among the people that I see every day. So my mind was flooded with information, but I needed implementation. And that's why when you introduced Whole Life Club, I immediately jumped on it. I think I was probably the first person to sign up. And that's been just wonderful experience for me.
What have you most gotten out of Whole Life Club? What's been most valuable to you in it?
Well, it's first of all, it strengthens my resolve. It equips me with tools, and the tools are so useful to me personally in my busy life. I love the fact that there's so many aspects to improving our health. It's not only the sleep, the quality of the sleep that we get, but the exercise, not just what we put in our mouths, but the cosmetics, the toothpaste, the dish soap that we use. Where do you start with all of that? It's overwhelming. But in Whole Life Club, I'm getting little sound bites from you each week. And they're definitely easy. Who doesn't have 10 minutes to listen to this week's video? Everyone does. And, you give the presentation. It's grounded in science. You give the explanation, and then you give the challenge. And that's what I love about it. It sort of comes to me in sound bites, which fits into my busy life. I love the recipes. Now, I've often asked myself, why didn't I just go out and get a recipe book on plant-based eating? I don't know why. But when I look forward to those 5 or 6 recipes every week, I have trained myself to download a couple of them and make sure that I implement 1 or 2 that week. It makes it easy for me because it's coming at me in manageable amounts. And let's see what else. I love first of all, about the recipes. I love that there are hints there about making them gluten-free, about making them dairy-free. So that helps me when I'm entertaining friends who have certain dietary needs. And I love that I found out about new foods. I had never heard of farro before. I never knew what that was. I never knew there were so many beans. Brownies made out of beans. This is all learning, and I'm enjoying expanding my eating repertoire. And I have my favorite recipes are let's see, I have them right here. Loaded sweet potato bowl, love it. Farro, butternut squash salad, can't wait. We're all salivating for it. Very good. I love the fact that you have the interviews and that I can watch them at my leisure. I don't always have time for an hour to listen attentively, but when I do want to watch, they're available. Or if I want to rewatch, I love that. And I also love that the social platform that you've chosen is something other than Facebook. I'm a little bit uncomfortable with Facebook, and I wouldn't, shall we say, post as willingly if it were Facebook. So it's an affordable way for me to maintain a consistency in my journey to better health. And I just love the fact that it's, like I said, sound bites. It fits into my schedule.
That's so great to hear. When you look at where you are in your health journey now, if you were to summarize some of the things that have improved or shifted and what that means to you, what would you say?
It means a lot to me. It sort of it almost has become my number one focus in my free time. So knowing what I did about how if I hadn't declined a life of statin drugs. I don't have a lot of, I want to take control of my own health. I don't want someone else making decisions for me, doctor or no doctor, because I found that most doctors want to write a prescription. I don't even take a pill, an aspirin. I don't think I've had an aspirin in a year. I don't want drugs. I don't want prescriptions. I want to heal myself naturally. And now I feel so empowered to do that. From what I've learned from Food Revolution Summit that you and your dad have run, and reading your book, and this a whole life club, the information that you've given. You know, 1 week it's protein, another week it's calcium. It's okay. I can handle it 1 week at a time, and I love knowing it for myself so that I can be my own advocate.
Wonderful. Thank you. If you were to say one thing to somebody who's thinking about joining Whole Life Club, what would you tell them?
Do it. You'll never regret it. Maximize your health. That's the most important thing we have. So you're a small investment in your life. Certainly the most valuable thing you can do for yourself. Skip a day at the spa or whatever else you would spend your money on. This is ongoing, sustainable, long-lasting, and I think so good for me personally. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much to Jean for sharing those inspiring words with us. I'm so moved by her courage, by her journey, by her willingness to take action and to get these kind of results. And I hear these kinds of stories all the time. They're anecdotal, of course, right? It's N1, as Dr. Ornish referred to earlier. But the plural of anecdotal is data. And we see over and over again lives changing when we adopt these principles. So if you feel interested in moving forward, in putting all this into action in your life so you can get the sustained and lasting results that you want, then I want to invite you right here and right now to step forward with us and to say yes. The doors are open for this special opportunity this week only to join in Whole Life Club for a very special price and make it happen in your life. So if that feels like a yes to you, if you feel a place in your body that says, I want this, or even maybe I'm kind of curious about it, click the link, check it out, find out more, make an informed choice. We would love to share this journey with you, not just today, but for your whole life. Welcoming healthy, organic lifestyle empowerment, by the way, is the acronym that whole comes out of. So that's it. Please join us if you feel so moved. We'd love to have you with us. And make sure to join us on Sunday for our final action hour in this series. We'll be on with Dr. Tara Brock on how to calm anxiety and cultivate resourcefulness. This is an incredible week, and I am so thrilled to be sharing it all with you. So make sure to check out Whole Life Club. I hope you enjoy some delicious, fabulous, healthy food, some positive movement, maybe some stress reduction, whatever jewels or gems or insights or resources or aha moments you've taken out of today. Now's the time to put them into action. See you on Sunday. See you in the journey, and hope to see you in Whole Life Club. Let's do this. When it comes to cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, heart disease, and other chronic illness, what really matters isn't how many books you read, how many webinars you attend, or how much you know. What really matters at the end of the day is what you eat and how you live. The science has given us what we need to know. Now it's time for action. It's time to implement and optimize your healthy lifestyle. It's time to get results. It's time to say goodbye to confusion and hello to clarity. It's time to say goodbye to bad habits and hello to good ones. It's time to fall in love with foods that love you back. It's time to join a community that will support you in achieving your goals. It's time for Whole Life Club. Click the link to find out more and to join in now.